One, two, three. Hello, and welcome to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. I am your host, Skelbastion Shaw. And with me, as always, my co-host, André.
Yeah.
André?
Azazel's.
What is that?
Azazel.
Oh, Azazel.
Right?
So you're like a Zandre.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You got it. It's better when you explain it.
Okay. And with us, we have a guest with us, Joe Eisma, great comic book artist.
I didn't come up with an X-Men name.
Much renown.
Thank you.
Welcome back, sir.
Yes, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
So you're an X-Men fan. That's why I thought you might want to join us here, because I'm always looking to reach out to X-Men fans.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all the best people are X-Men fans, quite frankly. I mean, it's known.
Every single one. Mother Teresa, X-Men fan. Gandhi, X-Men fan.
Before we get into it, actually, we're here to review X-Men First Class from 2011 in our movie review series as we await X-Men 97, which sounds like it's just around the corner.
Yes, very excited.
Starring James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Rose Byrne, Jennifer Lawrence, January Jones, February Smith, Wednesday.
I want to take
my
February
bad.
Smith. That's a great name.
Nicholas Hoult and Kevin Bacon, directed by Matthew Vaughn. My bad. February Smith's not in this one.
Well, because several names are names, like August is a name. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's only a few that are months, like September, January normally. February Smith.
February is a good name.
It's a great
go with it.
Especially because no one can ever spell it correctly. So
February.
I know. You have to stop it in your head and go February.
February or February.
So you know what we should do here? Here we go.
Well, let's catch up on old times.
What are they up to? What do you think they're doing up there?
What you think they're doing up there is one of our regular segments here. Joe, what do you think they're doing up there?
What's going on with you? What's going on with you, Joe? It's basically what he's asking. Yeah. in a roundabout, broken Cajun sort of way.
Well, my cat is like outside my office door, so I was like, "Did I miss something?" Because he's out there, he wants to get in. So I'm like, "Wait, did I miss something here?" But no.
Oh no,
we're cat friendly.
Yeah, we got mine. Usually jumps in here somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, just drawing comics. Watching nerdy stuff, playing video games.
What are you working on now?
What?
What comics you working on now?
Well, I'm working on one for Mad Cave / Maverick Press. They haven't announced it yet, but I hope they will soon because, it's sort of like X-Men influenced in that it takes place at a school, kind of college, kind of, that kind of academy aspect of X-Men. So it kind of has that. That's about the only thing I can say about it. But
okay, is that like your wheelhouse, like superpowered?
Yeah, it does. Like a podcast.
They're like, we got some kids in a school that have powers. Get Eisma.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's all right. That just gets you on an X-Men book eventually.
Yeah, right. That'd be nice.
So what about the X-Men? Do you enjoy or even love?
I love them, like, from the bottom of my heart. It's like the franchise that made me a fan of comics was the X-Men, because I started reading in the late 80s when they went to Australia, and the writing,
great era.
Yeah, great, totally underrated. And I think like a testament to like that era, or even the franchise strength as a whole, was like Claremont being able to like elevate that franchise and like, make it so in depth and so engrossing that I'd never read anything like that. I've never like watched movies or anything or TV shows at that age, that I was like, this is like really exciting. There's just so much lore. There's so much depth to this. So yeah, I mean, just hook, line, and sinker from day one. I just love everything about it. I love, you know, the kind of underdog aspect of it, you know, fighting against a world that, you know, hates and fears, or, you know, fighting to protect a world that hates and fears them. You know, I love that aspect. I love just every single aspect of it. I love all the powers, all the different characters. The soap opera aspect is a big one. So
many good costumes too from it.
yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do like, I don't know if y'all have done this, but I mean, you could do like an entire podcast on Storm's costumes alone, just like going through.
Oh, I would love to.
Storm is Davin's wheelhouse. That's Davan lives in Stormville 24/7.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. So great.
Storm is my queen. That's fine. We all
Okay.
have our monarchs, you know.
Yeah. She's great. I
That's
love her.
fine.
Yeah.
I do too. I can't wait for Mohawk Storm. And
Yeah, no, we're getting Mohawk Storm, which is fun. I'm excited about that. It's weird that she's got like Mohawk, but it's like the Mohawk with the still white costume. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
because the
It's
Mohawk was
interesting.
sort of that 80s rock, like rock,
Yeah.
you know, kind of look she had, which was great. I love that look actually.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about what the worst costume change in the history of time was. Like, there's a few. Like, this might be worth the whole podcast in itself just to talk about. But
Daredevil's blue and silver thing.
red and gray and silver thing. Blue and
Yeah,
silver.
I wasn't a big fan. Well, there was a lot of blue on it too. as I
Well, there's a
recall.
couple that stick out to me. One is when Superman went to the blue and red electrical thing. The other was when, at some reason in like the 2000s, they gave Electro like a blue and white costume. They got rid of like the yellow and green,
Yeah.
and it was just like a really basic flat blue and white thing, which I thought was really dumb. But I thought was like one of the worst was when they gave I must have been the 90s when they tried to like sexify every book that Marvel was doing, and Storm had for the Fantastic Four. Sue Storm had like a midriff with the four that cut out the cleavage.
Oh no, that one is bad. I
Yeah.
think that one debuted in issue. What was it, 400? Or was it 300?
She had like the
It was
high
300.
boots and the midriff showing and the cutout cleavage on the floor, and they just really like sexified. And she just had like a second kid or something, and they're like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had that
Desk
issue.
or something, or like, or being replaced or something at that point. I can't remember exactly the story.
Yeah, because that's when Thing was wearing the helmet, that white helmet.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of lame. So
Yeah.
Although what got me started on this was when they redesigned some of the characters in Batman the animated series between season 3 and 4.
Mhm.
And then some of them got cool upgrades, like the Scarecrow got way more terrifying looking, but some of them like really got downgrades, like Commissioner Gordon got kind of lamer looking, and the Riddler got a really lame up. Like he never was shown. You only saw him in the background a couple times, but like he looks more like the Frank Gorshin one and less like the cool one with the bowler hat and all that. Which is it's not cool. Yeah, he was bald for some reason, and it was really weird looking. Tiny little legs, like it was just Bane got a cool upgrade too, though. Like I don't know, some characters got upgrades, but some got serious downgrades.
So, do we have any opening thoughts on X-Men First Class? I think André and I actually had sort of the same reaction to one of these movies.
It's funny because watching these again, there are some that are better than I remember, and some that are worse than I remember.
This one was on the worst side.
Like, and it seems like they go the opposite. Anyone that I think was the better ones that I'm watching. Well, no, actually, no, because X-Men 2 is still the best one to me that I've seen so far in the rewatches. But like Wolverine Origins, I remember liking more than I liked the first time around. I really hated it the first time around. And it's still not a good movie, not even close. But in this one, I remember thinking was great, and upon reviewing it, it's okay, but I don't remember. It's not as good as I remember it being.
Yeah,
I remember it being refreshing, like this new take on everything, and
it might just be because I hated the
seems
last
like a downgrade
stand so much that like anything that was different or something else was better to me at that time. I don't know. Like I really hated the Last Stand when I saw it. I still hated it when we rewatched it, but less. Like I think it was like half an hour of a good movie up until when Cyclops gets to Alkaline Lake is when it goes down. But up until that point, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought First Class. I like the campiness aspect of this movie. Like,
they really go hard.
I was like reviewing the Wikipedia page before this. It was like, that the Bond films of the 60s was an influence on Matthew Vaughn when he did this. And I was like, I could totally see that. And
yeah.
like,
yeah, I never think of that. Yeah, totally.
yeah. And I love that aspect of it. If I think of like, because like some of the absurdity of some of the Connery Bond movies, like, there's some great movies in there, but there's some really out there stuff. And I'm like, I feel like they're kind of channeling that in this one. And it's like,
Yeah, the villain even has a submarine. Like, like that's the most Bond thing ever. Like,
And they got this swinging 60s aesthetic, where like there's, like Professor X is all groovy and like trying to pick up chicks and stuff.
Right.
Like,
and a criminally used White Queen as like the Bond villain.
Right. But
Yeah.
like,
one that winds up, the Bond villain always winds up, kind of being some kind of a, usually Bond ends up sleeping with her at some point. And,
Right.
like she ends up with Magneto's side at the end. So kind of.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give it up for Kevin Bacon too. Like the dude is like scenery chewing through every scene in this movie. Like a lot of times these people do these movies and like sort of like big stars, like they're like slumming it.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Bacon's just going for it, and I was like, I actually respect that.
I honestly would have liked to see way more of him in World War II. Like that version of him was much more scary than like the 60s kind of Bond villain version.
Yeah.
But what a redo of Sebastian Shaw. Now let's just make him a Nazi.
Yeah,
he's Shaw in name only, really. I mean, what else is there?
Well, everything in these X-Men movies is pretty much in name only. That's been one of my gripes through our reviews so far. It's like Sabretooth Sabretooth was kind of Sabretooth in Origins, actually. But like that first Sabretooth guy was just
for the most part, but if you think like they don't really go too deep into anything in that movie. Like he's just like, I'm aggressive and I don't like being told not to be aggressive, and that's my whole motivation. I'm gonna kill everyone who tells me not to, not to be angry.
Yeah.
You want to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So we get back. Essentially, I wanted to double check. I don't think it is, but it's goddamn close. A complete. I would have sworn that this was just the clip from X-Men 1 again. But it's very. I don't think so. But it's very. It's filmed very similarly. Even some of the shots and scenes there. I'm assuming because.
We're not even 10 seconds in. I already have a gripe. So I remember this being more of a reboot-ish, or at least more of a soft reboot.
No, this was definitely
not. They tie it right in with these exact same actors in this exact same World War II scene. I don't think
it's the same.
I don't think that helped.
The kid's not.
It's definitely the same kid. What?
No, it's not. This movie came out 10 years after X-Men 1.
Well, wow, they found a kid that looked just like him.
That kid would have been like 20 something. He would have been way older than he was when he was in the movie. And I don't think you saw.
I think they should have just connected it more, because then it wouldn't be so weird that Mystique is Xavier's sister. But in those first 3 movies, he never mentioned.
They also use one line of dialogue to explain why she still looks young in the future. Do you get at one point? Beast, when he's studying her, says something like, "Your DNA replicates itself so frequently that you age so much slower." So, like, you'll look the same when you're 60 as you will now, which explains why she will look. But like no reference whatsoever that they had a childhood together, that they were like basically brother and sister. So that's why, like, if you just take I guess the next movie tried to fix it with with timelines, because of time travel screwing everything up. But it still is just.
Dan the Man wants to know how we felt about the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer.
Well, let's save that to the end. That's
all right. We'll save that for the end.
Yeah. So yeah, we basically get the same scene where, if you remember from X-Men 1, with the kid being pulled away from his parents in the concentration camp, him trying to reach out to them and using his burgeoning magnetic powers to bend the gate before he gets knocked out by the Nazis. This time, of course, we see somebody watching this from a window, sipping tea and looking rather nefarious, very James Bond villainish, as you mentioned. And then we
James Bond ever fight Nazis?
No, Russian's pretty close. I mean, like Cold War Russian people, but that's about as far back as it goes, because Dr. No was past the war.
Yeah. Dr. No was my favorite one. I like that one.
The very first one.
Hmm.
So then at the same time, we catch a young boy who we come to know as Charles Xavier. Here, coming down to the kitchen, because he hears noise and seeing his mother digging around in the fridge. They have a bit of an interaction. The mother tells him to go to bed. She'll make him a sandwich, in which he realizes that this woman is not his mother, because his mother is a rich, aristocratic type person who would never make him a sandwich, would get the help to do it. And accusing her, the woman reveals herself to be a shapeshifter who's also a little girl that is blue, as we come to know as Raven Darkholme or Mystique, which I guess that name comes much later, but for now, just Raven. I gotta say, young Raven,
where she like reduces in mass was a bit clunky.
It's got to be interesting because, like, would she just be super light? Like, if you were to go pick up the woman, that like the adult-sized woman that's being transformed from a child, because the mass wouldn't be there. Would she be lighter? Or is that just like
very confusing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, she takes the form of like Wolverine and like punches him through a wall or something, and punches him so he doesn't flip at one point. So, like, I don't know if it's the full adaptation takes everything, including the adamantium skeleton, or what. But
no, she doesn't get an adamantium skeleton.
Yeah,
hers
I know,
is
but
more
like
cosmetic. There's better shapeshifters than her.
Then we get quite possibly the best scene in this movie, which is back to Magneto, who is brought in to see what's his name? What is his German name in this?
Isn't it like Schmidt or something like that?
Yeah, it is Schmidt. Something Schmidt.
Yeah.
So he claims to be working on experiments with the Nazis. He's not necessarily one of them, but you know, he's here, and that their methods are rudimentary, but they're effective, kind of thing. So he wants him to be able to use his powers that he saw him use earlier to move a coin on the desk. And because he's having issues doing that, he can't make it work for him. He brings in his mother, Magneto's mother, or Eric's mother. I guess we're not at those names yet. Eric's mother, and points a gun to her head and says that he'll shoot her if he can't do it until the count of 3. He tries his best, but he's unable, and they shoot his mother, causing him to fly into a rage, which activates his powers and makes him crush the metal helmets of the soldiers, which makes them die. Crush. It's so funny that like when his powers activate, he kills everyone that's not the guy that killed his mother. Like, because like Shaw's standing right there, and he kills everyone else, and he makes the whole room that's like Shaw's experiment room crush in on itself and bang around. And then Shaw
that happens in bad movies a lot.
Yeah, well, you know, if you just killed him right then it'd be funny. It'd actually be really funny if they did just kill Kevin Bacon in the first 2 minutes, and then like you never see him again. Like, just complete waste of an actor of that caliber.
The old Psycho beginning, eh?
Well, actually, Psycho was like 40 minutes in before they killed off the female lead, and then gave us a new female lead. But so, and like the glee on Kevin, like the scenery chewing, you're kind of saying, like the glee on his face when he's like watching, you know, him kill these. He's like, oh, ah, you know, like just really enjoying all of the destruction and seeing his powers at work.
Yeah.
But like Shaw's powers are pretty impressive too, you know, like when you see them in action later. And I kind of like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say I like how they show it when we see it later, like the way they do it in the movie. It's kind of cool, but.
I was going to say we haven't seen such gleeful scenery chewing from a villain since Generation X. And
oh yeah, yeah. Matt Frewer is by far the biggest scenery chewer in any movie in that movie. It's like if Ace Ventura and The Mask were one character in one movie as a villain, played by Matt Frewer. So he comes to the conclusion that, you know, Magneto's powers are activated through anger. So that's going to be the basis of where they're going to start experimenting with his powers, and he puts the coin in the kid's hand and leaves him. And then we get to the future, or rather to the future of this timeline, which would be, I guess, the 60s. I don't know if it says exactly what year it is. It may, and I may have missed it. But we get this cool little, like, the coin flips over and shows the first class, you know, symbol.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to say that I like about this movie quite a bit is the music. The score is quite good. That scene where you cut to the slightly in the future and you see a now adult Eric with the same tattoo in his arm with the number, and him flipping the coin in like a hotel room. They got this really like dark kind of score underneath it, which is really cool. Yeah, no problem. Which I thought was really neat. I mean, Fassbender's a cool actor. He's definitely good in this role. Yeah.
I mean, everything I've seen him in, like, he elevates pretty much. Like, the last thing I saw him in was The Killer on Netflix.
Oh, so good.
Oh, good.
There's only one movie I've ever seen him in that I hated, and it wasn't his fault, but it was just a bad movie. It was the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh God, it's bad. It's so bad, man. And you're a video game guy, so like you.
I know. Well,
yeah.
I don't really go for the video game movies because, like, I feel like that's a whole other soapbox. I'm like, you can't take away the agency that you have when you're playing a video game and then remove it to watch a movie version of that. Like, it's like,
Agreed.
I feel like you lose something. But then you have like The Last of Us, which was like a pretty solid adaptation. So
there's good ones out there. I mean, like the Resident Evil ones always fell short for me, and I love those games so much.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. I mean, they're stupid.
Yeah. The especially like it's funny because I always say like they scare the shit out. Like they don't scare me, but like you give yourself a heart attack. You're always jumping from things coming out of left field. Like I started playing RE4 again, the remake that they just did, and I forgot about that whole scene when you got to survive in the village for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
where everyone's just coming at you, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I forgot about this.
Yeah, it's rough.
And even like in Resident Evil 2, when the Mr. X chased you around, I was like, being chased by that guy is like the most like heart, pumping part. And then they make Nemesis. The whole game is that, and you're like, oh God. But so we see him. We see Magneto gazing at a serial killer board that he made with little red strings leading to all the people he needs to kill to get revenge for his twisted past. Although at no point do they ever really explain how he got away from the Nazis, or if he got away from the Nazis, if they just let him go. Or
their Magneto movie they were going to do at some point.
Yeah, well, that's what this was originally going to be. And after seeing that scene at the beginning, and then seeing the stuff with him getting revenge before we get back to the X-Men, I would have just liked to see that. That would have been a great movie.
Yeah,
I would have been really down for that. Which
just
is
the Magneto revenge epic.
Yeah, up until he connects with.
Wasn't that what they were gonna do? Like,
yeah, it was.
The next movie supposed to, and it was just gonna be that. Yeah,
there's gonna be a X-Men Origins Magneto movie, which would have been this. And if this had been it, and we didn't have him hook up with, well, I guess he would have hooked up with Charles at the end probably. But like, if it had been him getting revenge on the Nazi, like this would be like Munich, the movie Munich, but with like mutants killing the people that like if here's a whole group of people in the camps that other mutants are experimenting on, and we get some like cool other X-Men characters, and they were getting revenge on the Nazis that
it's like them. This movie meets Wolverine Origins.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, in some weird overlappy way. But then we see Charles. We meet Charles, who's now has hair and is about 20, I'm guessing, or 22-ish, because he's just about to graduate from university to be a professor. So he's at a bar trying to pick up a girl with 2 different colored eyes, who has the most ridiculous 2 different colored eyes I've ever seen in my life.
A very groovy mutation.
A very groovy mutation. Yeah, he's got this like this canned sort of thing he has to talk to women that he finds attractive based on whatever physical trait he can use to explain mutation to them. Because he does it a little later with a woman with red hair. And he names the chromosome or whatever that causes that to just show off how brilliant he is. But I love that
is a pretty big flex.
Yeah, well, I mean, he also has mental powers too that allows him.
Oh, right.
I do love
help him though. That just means somebody else in the room would have to know that.
Well, I do love in this movie they give him the tell when he's using his powers because he does this. It's when when he's going to use his power, he's using his powers.
I like a good Professor Xavier temple touch myself.
Well, it's so funny because it's like, how would that work? Like, I have this physical trait that only works if I touch my head like this. Like, is there a button?
Yeah. Cyclops has that button.
Psychic powers activate. So they're joined by his sister, who is Jennifer Lawrence, played by Jennifer Lawrence, which is Raven as an older lady. This is probably one of her first.
What a choice, though. I mean, is that just not just an awful choice for this movie?
I'm
going to complain a lot about this movie.
This is before
I'm not a big Jennifer Lawrence fan, but that's not what I'm talking about. I just mean the mystique being Xavier's sister.
Oh yeah, no,
it's a weird choice.
Like, I get that
I don't see what it adds to it, really.
I think the narrative story would have to be acceptance, right? Acceptance of your powers, which I find interesting because Charles is not very accepting of her just showing her own face. Like he convinces her to not be in her original blue form because it disturbs him, which is like a horrible trend for a guy that's trying to unite mutants and make them feel accepted in their own skins. So
yeah, well, I think they're trying to play off too, like that people don't really know about mutants yet.
Well, yeah, but
He
he is
doesn't really
one.
want-
You know, like
He is, but he doesn't want people to know that. So
but
he
there
doesn't-
is something that is kind of touched on in future movies about the mutants that fit in and the mutants that don't. Right. So like he's like he can fit in, she can fit in using her powers, but you know, she says she shouldn't have to. Which is something that's mentioned in previous movies anyway. But anyway, well, he's hitting on this girl. Raven's jealous, and there's actually quite a through line in this movie that she actually really likes Charles beyond in a brotherly role, but he just doesn't see her that way. 100%. I don't know.
In there?
It's never explicitly said, but if you're watching the movie, because she gets jealous when he's hitting on the girl with the two colored eyes, so she makes her eyes do the same thing. And it's to draw attention away from the how special this other girl is, you know, and stuff like that. I think it's not overtly it's not overtly said, but it's kind of obvious because there's a point later where she sort of may be starting to come on to him, and that's when he rejects her for her original blue form, and that's kind of what stops it. And then she goes for Beast and then Magneto. But yeah, so.
Without jumping ahead too much, how is McAvoy for you guys as Xavier?
He's all right. I feel like he comes into his own more in future movies, but
agreed. Yeah.
But like but he's playing like a 22-year-old guy with powers and doesn't really know the extent of what the world can harm him, and so like as someone who's young and doesn't really get the stakes yet, you know, I think he does a good job on it. Like he's he's a great
hard act to follow too.
Well, he's a great actor. I mean, have you ever seen Split?
Haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, dude,
great. Yeah.
He plays like not like someone with a multiple personality disorder, and he plays like 10 different people as the same person, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we cut to find out what life's like now. So Raven and Charles. And this is where another part of the scene that sets in that she has a crush on him. They live together, and she's getting ready for bed. And she comes out and mentions something about if he would date her, looking the way she does. And he immediately says, "Oh, well, you're like a sister to me," which is kind of a cover for the fact that he doesn't like her blue form. Which is, you know, once again.
I guess they do kind of say it then, guess, don't they? Well, all right, André, you were paying attention to this movie.
Well, they kind of cover it with like her saying, "Well, I just like if you didn't know me," because she wants to know if she's pretty in a regular form, you know. And he's like, which is funny because I just finished watching Secret Invasion because I was really behind on it, and they have a lot of this in that, you know, like if your partner, your lover, your wife in this of that show could look like anybody, like, but her true form is like a Skrull, like. You're always wondering whether they really love you for you or just what you look like.
Yeah.
I don't know why people shit on that show so much. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It was like a fun Cold War spy thing with Skrulls. I don't know. I dug it.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
I liked it. I don't know. Everybody really shits on it. And when I was telling people catching up on Marvel shows, they were like, "Oh, don't bother with that one." I'm like, I'm gonna watch it. And then I watched it. And I'm like, it's great. I don't know. I dug it. I thought it was fun. So then we see Magneto's plan and put it into action, in which he's trying to sell some Nazi gold or store Nazi gold rather in a bank with a dubious bank manager that does this stuff under the table for certain people. And then we find out, of course, that Magneto's only doing it to get information on other people that have done this, those being the Nazis that worked in the camp. He gets the information out of the banker by pulling his fillings out one at a time, using his powers, which is and then I think puts one against his head like he's going to drive it through his head. Getting that information, he takes off to go continue on his mission. And we cut to Las Vegas, Nevada, where we see Rose Byrne, who we now know as, for some reason in this world, not a scientist but a CIA operative, and it's not
Scottish,
and it's not Scottish anymore either. Even though the actress that plays her is English, right? Rose Byrne's English, isn't she?
Yeah. Like, there's every reason to make her. This movie makes so many strange choices. I don't know what they were going for here. I really don't. Like on rewatch, I was like, "Why did I like this?"
It's also kind of a really convoluted plot. The more you get into it, the more it's like needlessly complicated. So she's in the car with her partner. They see a bunch of women in lingerie being brought in as the entertainment. She decides the way to get in and get information on Shaw, who they're monitoring, is to strip down to her underwear and join them, pretend to be one of them. Cover Ursula's ears, just want to hear about all this stuff. Oh.
I don't have a problem with this particular plot thread. So
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
You think it's fine?
He's like, don't objectify women based on their looks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not nice.
Although it's quite easy to do that in this scene. They're all very attractive. So she basically they're trying to get information on Shaw. Or actually, I think it's not Shaw specifically. I think it's this government, this general guy.
Yeah,
And his dealings with Shaw. So she sneaks in. There's like rooms where
the guy who thinks a grenade's gonna save him later.
Oh yeah, that guy always plays a military dude in like a million things. But she manages all the women pair off with different women and go off to their little booths where you can assume what would be happening in there. But she sees the January Jones's character, who we come to know as the White Queen or Emma Frost. I don't think she's ever referred to as the White Queen, just Emma Frost. Take the general.
She doesn't deserve the moniker in the nothing against the actress or anything, but
I mean, honestly,
White Queen is a great, powerful character and like snarky and witty, and just none of that is in this movie.
She's so awkward in this movie. She's so like not comfortable in this role.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, you can tell. Like I never saw Mad Men, so I don't know what she was like in that. But she was on the show. Go to hell, Jaemeel. It's fine. It does not fall apart at the end. It's fine. So she was on the show The Last Man on Earth, that Will Forte show, which I really liked, and she was fine in that. It was a comedy, but it was about like a virus wipes out most of the population on the planet, and there's only a few people left that are trying to restart civilization. And it's a comedy, and it's with a darker premise, but she's good in it. But in this, you can tell she does not seem confident in this role at all, especially for a character that's supposed to ooze confidence, right?
Do you think she's just cashing a check, or just like that's just?
No, I think she was. Well, I guess this would have been after Mad Men, wouldn't it have been, or during Mad Men?
Yeah, probably like at the tail end of it, maybe. I don't remember.
And like maybe it's the fact that what her character wears for the whole movie. Like she's basically in lingerie the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And if you're any kind of self-conscious person, I mean, she has no reason to be. But people are, regardless of how attractive or unattractive they are. I guess that's perspective. But I could see why that would probably be jarring and probably not allow you to want to do this role as much. And also, it's a comic book thing. There's goofy costumes, and who knows. But anyway, Rose Byrne follows them into the booth to try to hear something, sees that it's empty, implying that they've gone somewhere. So she finds a secret button on the table that sends her to this secret room, secret part of the casino, where Sebastian Shaw, who is now a debonair Bond, 60s Bond villain in a tuxedo, is talking with this general, and he wants the general to back. It's not straight to Cuba, is it? It's just something to do with army nukes against the Russians. It's very
I forget.
Oh, it's missiles in Turkey. It's missile. Yeah, sorry, I just let it play for a second. They want to put Jupiter missiles. They want to put Jupiter missiles in Turkey, pointing towards Russia, which is what the general has blocked. And Shaw wants this to happen. Shaw refuses to do that, the general says he refuses to do that, and then Shaw shows him his power, basically not his power, but the powers of those around him. So there's a guy sitting at the bar that has sand powers, I guess. Is this guy ever named?
Is he supposed to be like Riptide?
Oh, that's possible. Let's see if he's named in here. He's not Janos Quested, Alex Gonzalez. That's the only one I see here in the listing that could be him. But yeah, so he's the only one that's kind of listed. He doesn't actually talk in this movie.
What they do in these movies, they just it makes me so mad. I love X-Men characters, and they're all so good, even the villains and everything. It's just like, let them talk, let them be characters.
No, there's no room for that. I also looked up the kid who played young Eric. He is definitely not the kid from the first movie.
All right, yeah, right.
Because that
makes more sense.
Yeah, because this movie, X-Men First Class was 2011, and X-Men 1 was 2010, so it would have been 10 years later. 2001. It would have been 10, or 99. What year is X-Men 1? 2001. 2000? I think it was 2000. Anyway. So they basically show him that they have powers, that they're mutants with powers to intimidate him into doing what he's supposed to do for them. We see January Jones using her abilities as well. Psychic powers, she can turn to diamond as well, her skin. And then, he basically is intimidated into doing what they want him to do. So Burns sneaks back to the car, uses the phone to call our superiors at the CIA. There's a lot of like misogyny about men not thinking women can do these sort of jobs in this movie. And the end scene, which we'll talk about later, just made me groan so loudly, which I'm sure is so dumb. But anyway, she runs back to the car to call her boss and tell him that the general's being intimidated. She just saw him in Las Vegas, and then as she was running to do that, we see the general was taken by a red demon-looking mutant who is Azazel, as we know from the
What
comics.
a choice! Another choice. It's Azazel. All right, fine.
Who can
Like
teleport?
they could have just done the Hellfire Club here. They could have. They didn't. They could have had Harry.
Well, they do
Lewin
mention
and-
that this place is called the Hellfire Club, like his casino, but
they didn't need Riptide or whoever he is and Azazel.
So yeah, Shaw explains mutation, evolution. They get powers from it, and he wants them to do what they're going to do. He calls Zazel, who appears, and then takes the general away. She runs to the phone to call her bosses. The boss is saying, "There's no way your general could have been in Las Vegas. He's right here. He's in the general's wearing the tuxedo," implying that Azazel teleported him all the way from Las Vegas to Langley. I guess is that, or no? That's the FBI. Where's the CIA headquarters at? Washington. I don't know. Wherever the CIA headquarters are. Or no, they're like in the war room or something, right? So would it be Washington, I assume? So back to Washington. Apparently, Azazel's powers are way stronger than Nightcrawler's. He can only go where he can see. Like Azazel can teleport across the country. Well, not in this. I mean, do we have to? I assume in the continuity of this movie, he has to be just a mutant. Like
this movie doesn't care about that. He could be a demon. He gets a line, I think, though. He at least gets to say something.
He's also Russian for some reason in this.
Oh.
If you notice his accent. So we see Professor X graduate, become a full professor. Then we also
Well
see
done. Well done.
Yes, congratulations. Tenured professor. So then we see Magneto. Oh, so when when Eric was getting the information, before, we see where he's at in his next stage, which he's in Argentina. Which is where the information he got from the banker before, and he finds these two men in this bar that are talking about being was it a pig farmer and a tailor, or what their jobs are. But you can tell there's more to them than that. Basically, he sees her speaking German, speaks back with them in German, saying his family's from certain parts of the same place, where this Dusseldorf, I think. And then basically when they say, well, where's your family now? And he says that they were killed by pig farmers and tailors, the things they both claim to be. And then essentially gets in a fight with them, and the bartender has a shotgun and basically fucks them all up with his powers, which is actually pretty cool. Like when he takes the knife.
This is the best scene in the movie, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. All the Magneto stuff up until the point where he joins with Charles is great. If I would have just seen this, and maybe, like I said, throw in a few other mutants that were like also wronged by the Nazis that were on like a revenge mission. If this was Munich with mutants, I would have been totally down for this movie. Throw Eric Bana in there. That movie like still haunts me to this day. It was such a good movie.
That's great.
Spielberg is like one of those guys that can like. I feel like I read an interview somewhere with Nick Harris or somebody else that worked with him, where Spielberg said to them, like, I have a lot of great horror movies in my head, but I'll never get to make them. Because like people want Spielberg to do the Spielberg thing, right? But every once in a while,
he can do what he wants, though. He could fund a horror movie if he wanted.
Oh, probably. I mean, everything he does pretty much works out well. I think The Fablemans was the last thing. I don't know. That must have done well, I assume. But so yeah, he fucks up these Nazis and then sees a picture on the wall of them on a boat called the Caspertina in Miami. He's very convenient. Right on the wall is a beautiful picture of the two guys he just killed with Sebastian Shaw on the boat with the name of the boat clearly right underneath them. Like it's almost like they're like, what picture can we take that'll lead people to us the easiest? This is the one, short of them holding their phone numbers and addresses in front of their faces on piece of paper. So then we see Charles, who is approached by Moira McTaggart in the bar when he's drinking. He tries to do his pick her up thing, but she's not really having any of it because she wants to talk to him about his stance on mutation, because that's what his whole thing is when he's becoming a professor.
Let's
He
just
reads
drop the Mick. Let's just call her Moira Taggart.
Moira Taggart, yeah, probably.
Yeah, Moira Taggart.
So he uses powers to see that what she saw, which is the whole stuff with Shaw, saying that he'll agree to help her, basically. Then we see the general, who doesn't want to be pushed around anymore, meeting Shaw in his boat in Miami, and he brought a grenade with him to stop them from hurting him.
I don't understand his game plan there.
Well, he thought that he'd blow them all up if they tried to hurt him
down rather than be blown up with him. Like is he really going to like blow himself up?
Also, why go in the first place if you're pretty sure they're going to kill you? Because like it seemed like they were going to, now that he did what they wanted him to do. He's like, "Oh, watch it! I got a grenade," and then Shaw.
It's all about those suitcases full of cash. You know, nobody wants a wire transfer.
Yeah, right. Can't trace that. So, yeah, you know, it's funny whenever the Bond villain thing is really funny because he's wearing like a full white suit with this a red ascot and a red little patch. Like he's very well coordinated.
Can't believe I didn't think of that. It's such a Bond movie. You know?
Oh, 100%. So he explains that his powers are kinetic in nature, in which he can take energy and use it for different means. So he takes the grenade. And like the way they show his powers working is kind of cool. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's still neat. It's almost like shadow versions of him. Like you see multiple hands coming in and pulling the explosion into him, which is kind of
cool,
neat.
right?
Yeah, it does look neat.
It was cool.
And then he can use it in different ways. So he just taps the general and basically moves all the energy into him, and he just explodes.
He's kind of like the best part of this movie, and you know he's nothing like comic book Sebastian Shaw or anything, but like whatever. He's still pretty good in this movie.
But a gleeful villain nonetheless.
The gleeful villain and the powers are pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Moira Taggart brings Charles to see her bosses in the CIA, and they explain mutant powers to them. They don't believe. They think she's been duped by him until Raven shows off her powers. And then he uses his as well. If he uses his as well, but the people think it's just parlor tricks. But then Raven shows hers, and then they kind of are interested. One guy sitting in the back in a chair, particularly played by Oliver Platt, is interested. Who is a CIA guy that's into weird stuff and is doing tests on psychic abilities and other things like that.
Pretty sure his character name is just Man in the Black Suit. He doesn't.
It is. His character name on is Man. I think he's like a Man in Black. Man in Black Suit is what his character name.
Yeah.
Which is quite a fall from Jimmy King, the star of Ready to Rumble, the movie from my childhood that I love so dearly. The WCW wrestling movie. Oh man. Actually, he was on the first season of Fargo, which is a show I highly suggest if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, first season of Fargo is great.
Oh, every season of Fargo is great that I've seen. I haven't seen 4 yet, or 5, I guess. But it's so
God,
good.
how many seasons of Fargo is there?
I think there's a new one coming too. So anyway, they go off with him.
What happens in that particular town?
Well, it's actually not always the same place. It's just kind of around. So anyway, they use the man. They have to go. She gets some information about. Moira gets information from her partner about some doings that transpire with Shaw. Because she wants to go after him, but then she gets her partner gets frozen, and Professor tells her to come to the inner mental. He talks to her through his mind to come meet him in the parking garage. God, this movie's long. This is only 30 minutes. All this stuff has happened in 30 minutes.
Yeah. You can yada through it somewhere.
Yeah, we're getting to a big-ish scene. So they use their powers to make the Man in Black come with them. They all get on a boat to go stop Shaw. At the same time, they're trying to find Shaw. Magneto also finds Shaw, but is stopped from being able to attack him by his mutant friends. He also gets caught up in everything going on. Charles senses there's another guy trying to kill Shaw with his powers, reaches out to him. Magneto can't let it go and wants to try to use his powers to pull the boat back, but it's too much for him and it's going to kill him. And Charles jumps in the water and uses his powers to get him to release so that he can survive. Then the Man in Black takes them to his facility where he's studying on mutant powers and all this stuff. And we see some like prototypes for the X-Jet and other things that come around later. And we meet young Hank McCoy, who Charles immediately outs as being a mutant. He's like, "Oh, you already have a mutant working here." And the Man in Black's like, "What?" And then they all look at McCoy, and he's like, "I didn't tell them yet." You know, and he shows his powers with which are his feet, which are like prehensile, or not? No, like 8 feet, it's like hands basically.
Yeah.
They can do a flip and all fun stuff with that. Also,
You can do a flip,
he can do a flip. He can hang upside down like a monkey.
run very fast for some reason.
Also, Magneto's now, or Eric's now joined the team. He's hanging out with them and is part of their further adventures. All right, so moving along.
He tells them that he has to channel his rage, and that'll make his powers stronger, or something like that.
Well, that was what his anger is what made his powers work the first time, but later on we learned that it's more than just that. I guess it's still kind of dumb. It's pretty saccharine, but anyway. So we see that during the fight she sensed there's another telepath around. Emma did, so her and Shaw are talking, and Shaw said he had this helmet made to protect him from telepaths, which, as we recognize immediately, is like a silver version of the Magneto helmet.
The origin of the helmet,
which Magneto makes much worse later when he wears it. The color's fine, but why add that stupid little chevron in the front? It looks like
cool, Andre.
It looks cool, and like the costume he has in the next movie looks pretty cool. That one he has at the end of this movie, not so much. They really made him comic booky. Like they didn't. I know there's like a careful balance between real world and.
It's the camp they're going for in this particular movie.
Yeah, and it does look like something someone would wear in the 60s, I guess, because I suppose the apocalypse is like in the 80s, right, or in 70s.
80s.
Oh, so no, first it must be the 70s because we got Future Past next, and then Apocalypse. So I feel like in Apocalypse he has a more. Actually, no. Oh God, I forget that movie so much. So, like, I feel like I fell asleep in the theater watching Apocalypse. So we see Shaw and the Frost where they're talking. They're in the Arctic in a submarine, which is where they're hanging out now with the Zazel and Riptide, I guess, as we're going to call him, because I can't think of another.
I'm going to say Riptide. Why not? Got any guesses, Joe?
Probably Riptide.
So does Riptide make sand? What is it? Or wind? What does he do?
No, he just has wind. Yeah, like kind of whirlwindy sort of powers. He's a marauder.
But what does the tide part come in? Riptides or there's water. Is it just if it's just wind, wouldn't it be gale?
You're
or gust
overthinking this, Andre. Like if he's doing his thing over water, I'm sure it throws some water.
I'm a graphic designer. My world is marketing, kind of. Like this is just poor marketing. This is bad branding. You don't give him a name that doesn't apply to his powers. Come on. I guess he may have shows it. So anyway, we see Raven and Hank talking. Hank wants to use Raven's powers, take some of her blood to do some studies. She's kind of flirting with him and she thought he looked cool, like he was cool with his abilities, because obviously the fact that he physically doesn't look like a normal person in some aspects doesn't bother her because there's a sheep. So while he's drawing her blood, she goes to kiss him. Magneto walks by and says kinky, basically because he's overhearing what they're doing, and then tells Raven that she should never have to change what she looks like, that she's perfect the way she is. And honestly, up until this point, I'm siding with Magneto. Like Eric's totally right. He's like, you shouldn't have to take some drug to change what you look like. You should be able to accept who you are and what you are.
Yeah, they try to make Magneto the good guy in most of these movies, really.
Well, it's just, I mean, honestly, this movie they try to explain his decisions based around his trauma, like what happened to him and his family in Auschwitz. It's like
they did that in the old ones too. Like he would always show the tattoo on his arm.
But he's definitely a lot more cool, calm, and collected in the other movies. Except at some key points.
I like McAvoy as Xavier better than I like Fassbender as Magneto.
Oh, really? I thought Fassbender's Magneto was great.
Yeah. I love like a whole Fassbender is like the 80s headmaster,
That'd
be great.
Be interesting. They didn't go that route, though, did they?
I know.
Oh, well.
Unfortunately.
They should have. I don't think I've seen the last one. I haven't seen Dark Phoenix yet.
Yeah, you know what? It also wasn't. Oh, I'll see what I feel when I go see it. But I remember thinking it wasn't as bad as everyone said it was. It certainly wasn't as bad as The Last Stand. So anyway, Magneto's going to leave. Charles reaches out to him and kind of connects with him to get him to stay, to help. They decide to use the Band of Black shows them Cerebro, which is something that Beast has been working on. I'm just going to refer to them as their X-Men names because it's much faster than trying to yammer over whatever. And they use it to go find some mutants to help the cause. They find a stripper mutant played by Zoe Kravitz, who we now know as Catwoman, which is I forgot was in this. She plays Angel, the version of Angel that is the insect woman from Grant Morrison's run.
From your beloved Grant Morrison's
It
run.
is my beloved Grant Morrison run. I believe Joe agrees with me. You love that run too, right, Joe?
It's one of my favorites.
I feel like we talked about it when you were on my show.
We did.
Then we meet Darwin, who's a cab driver that is and they explain their abilities to each other later, but I'll just do them now for brevity. He can adapt to any situation. If he's in water, he'll grow gills. If he's
Can he though?
yeah, not if it means not dying, then yeah. Apparently, but
what a choice! Oh my god! Where do we get to that point? Anyway,
we meet a kid in Solitary, who's Alex Summers, who, if he's Cyclops' brother, he's got
there it is. There's the temple.
He's also got those Dickensian fingerless gloves on. Actually, is that from this movie?
Isn't it?
I feel like it might be from the next one, but because
at
one point
here's
he's all
kids.
Yeah, that's them. So we see Banshee,
Havoc, and Banshee there too.
Yep. So if Alex Summers is supposed to be Scott's older brother in this, he is like 10 years older than him, I guess, because age-wise, right?
But when did we see? Because they forced young Scott into Wolverine Origins awkwardly.
Yeah.
So when was that? Because that Scott was probably like 16 or 17.
That would have been in the 80s, I think, right?
Wolverine Origins. So Cyclops was 16.
Because if assuming X-Men takes place in 2000 when it came out, then
none of this makes any sense.
No, it makes sense if it was the 80s when Cyclops was around, like he was in high school. Because
in high school in the 80s,
late 80s,
and then he's 30 when we
let's say he's 30,
in the year 2000.
Yeah, ish. It's like 89, 99. It's only 11 years. It was late 80s,
maybe. Yeah,
but anyway, we see Havoc, who has these abilities to shoot these energy beams out of his body that he can't really control. They also approach.
They just kind of make them like Cyclops beams too. They're like red and everything.
Yeah, they look kind of cool. Then we see Banshee trying to pick up a girl at an aquarium by scaring.
I was hoping
for some reason.
My favorite Havoc design with like the cool helmet, the headgear, and the all black suit with just like the circle.
Banshee's introduction is really dumb too, because he's like at an aquarium trying to hit on a girl and she having none of it, so he uses his powers to make all the fish go away. Like, it's just really dumb. So anyway, they recruit him, and then they also try to recruit Wolverine, who's sitting at a bar. And when they come
again,
up to him,
it's nothing like Banshee, but Banshee's like one of my favorite things in this movie. It's nothing like comic book Banshee or anything, but I like the way his power looks, and the kid's kind of funny.
So they approach Logan,
they go
sitting at a bar. Tells him before they even say anything, he tells them to fuck off, and he actually says fuck off, and they just turn and leave, which is kind of done for comedy, really, more than anything.
Still got a PG-13 because you're allowed to say that once.
You know what's the cleverest way I've ever seen that done? There's
not this movie.
No, there's a movie called Get Shorty that you may remember with John Travolta.
Danny DeVito, right?
They did a sequel called Get Cool. Was it Get Cool? Get Shorty. Be Cool.
Yeah.
That The Rock was in and some other people. But at one point, the gangster character who became was it an acting? He's making movies in the first one. In the second one, I think he's trying to become a music producer or something, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. But at one point, he's talking about how movies are bullshit because to get a PG rating, you can only say the F word once in the movie. And he goes, you know what I got to say about that? Fuck that. And that's all he says. And the F word never comes up again. And the movie was PG-13.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah. So we see them in their submarine goofing around looking for the next stage of their plan, which we come to learn as we go. We see Charles and Magneto getting closer. We see the teens
bad
all
guys.
Like Azazel looks cool. We see the teens bonding at the military, showing each other's powers. They fuck up a statue while doing so. then let's see if we go here. We see them getting kind of rowdy, and they cause some damage, and then they're sort of talked down to by Magneto and Professor X and them who come and see them. They also give each other the names. They come up with where the code names come from. They're like, oh well, I'll be Mystique, and the Darwin's name is Darwin, so that's why he uses his. They all choose names based on their powers. Let's see, and then we get to where's the next step here? Where are we at? Oh yeah, them going on a mission to intercept the White Queen, who's going to talk to a general in Cuba, because the next stage of his plans are to put missiles in Cuba, as as we all know about the Cuban Missile Crisis from the Cold War in the 80s. She's there to try. Emma's there to try to intimidate him in doing so, or not intimidate, but rather lust him into doing so. He thinks that he's having sex with her. In fact, she's just using her powers to make him think that. Charles and Magneto bust in and tie her to the bed, and then this is one thing. So Magneto uses his powers to crack her diamond by crushing her with the metal pieces, making her go back to her human form, because when she's in diamond form, you can't read her mind or use psychic powers on her. So if she and he even tells Charles, there you go, read her mind, and if she goes back to diamond sword, just give her a tap, implying that she'll just shatter, which is why she went back to human form if she stayed in diamond form, which doesn't make sense to me because
injury transfer from form to form.
I guess not, but that's a really weird. And later on, she becomes diamond again, so it must heal.
Anyway,
he uses powers.
I didn't think about a lot in much depth in this movie.
He uses his powers to see into her mind, which sees that what Shaw is basically trying to do is cue a nuclear holocaust. Causing a nuclear war between Russia and America, and essentially which actually is kind of out of the script that Mr. Skur had let us read. We had a previous guest on the show as a writer for the X-Men cartoon, and he wrote a spec script for an X-Men movie in the 90s. And
we're doing a radio theater of it.
Do a radio theater of it, which is if you're interested, so you can kind of hear it read. Yeah, it's cool. It was actually pretty neat. But aspects of it have and he said that he sent it to Avi Arad early on, and aspects of it seem to bleed into other things that we've seen. So I don't know if it's ever
X-Men 1 and 2, even a lot.
But the idea that someone's causing a nuclear war because the mutants will survive it, but it'll get rid of the rest of everyone else.
Yeah, and irradiate people and speed up mutations.
Yeah, exactly. So we see Shaw and his people break into the base because while they're off doing that, the other guys are doing this essentially. Which are trying to get in and find Charles, who isn't there. So he runs into the kid mutants who are hanging behind. He gets in a fight with Darwin essentially, and Darwin uses his powers against him, but Shaw is able to use Havoc's powers by absorbing them and then puts it into Darwin's mouth while Darwin just stands there and lets him do it. Here, let me put this.
Of all the characters, let's kill the unkillable characters.
Yeah,
so he just guts his power.
I guess because it kills him from the inside out. Maybe that's why he survives. He dies instead of his skin becoming hard or growing gills or any of these things that allow you to survive.
I guess, yeah.
But anyway,
he's going for shock value, killing the unkillable character. I guess
he tells them to that he wants them to be able to live the lives they have as mutants and not have to hide. Angel likes the idea of this and joins him.
He's like Magneto. Magneto just takes his philosophy from Shaw, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of
at the end too.
He literally just steps into his role. He's like, this guy was a monster. I'll be better.
Yeah,
essentially only because I didn't experiment on people. That's why I'm better.
Which doesn't really jive with the way Ian McKellen kind of portrayed Magneto.
No, Magneto was willing to sacrifice other mutants, and in the first movie at least. So we see this is where we learn about them wanting to put the nukes in Cuba, all that sort of stuff. We see the kids, going over what happened to them, and to Darwin explaining it to Charles and Magneto and the crew. Then we see basically the end game of what he's doing, which essentially starting this war. It's all happening down near the coast of Cuba. And kind of, through a lot of this. So there's a quick montage where they're trying to they need to be ready to fight Shaw because they weren't. So they're learning to control their powers better. They make a suit for Havoc, allowing him to control his powers. Magneto is kind of taught that he can focus his rage into not just losing his temper, but actually remember
Banshee out a window.
Yeah, they throw Banshee out of a window and then a satellite dish to learn to use Scream to fly.
That satellite dish thing they did to him is crazy. Like he so easily could have died.
Oh yeah.
Even pushing him out a window was pretty funny though.
We saw Leland Palmer.
He just goes, ha! He never really gets to scream off, so he just hits the ground.
Yeah, it's pretty right into the bush.
Yeah.
We see Leland Palmer from Twin Peaks. Ray Wise is on the military council.
Was Ray Wise? Oh, he was.
He's the president, I think. It's kind of vague how quickly you see him.
Oh wow!
Remember, I was saying I thought he was the president in a Marvel movie. It must have been this one because I thought he was the president in the Marvel Comics universe at one point, but in the MCU proper. So they see them all learning to use their powers. Beast is learning to run, using his abilities. Havoc they make a costume for him to allow him to control his powers.
What is it?
I didn't mind him too much. We see Raven lifting weights, and then Magneto explaining to her that she'd be stronger if she didn't have to concentrate on looking human the whole time. So she should be who she is. More of that. So you see them all getting better at their powers, and Charles uses his to kind of calm Magneto's mind and explain that his love for his mother is what fueled his rage, and if he can channel that in the same level of his anger, that he can use his powers to a greater extent. Which is funny when you think about X-Men 3 when he's lifting the Golden Gate Bridge. If he's just I love my mother so much, I'm going to kill all these people. The whole bridge.
Yeah, these movies, they really should have just connected this, I think, from the original 3. It didn't make either.
Well, they kind of do at the end of all this, but anyway, so we see Shaw going into his end game where he's moving all the ships in position to start a nuclear war, basically. So the Russians and the Americans are off the coast of Cuba all have ships with nukes on them, or missiles rather, that are all going against each other. And they're getting ready to go. We see Beast finally make a serum out of his what is it? Well, it explains why he's blue, because the blood's from Mystique, which actually is sort of makes sense. So he synthesized a serum that's going to keep your mutant powers, but inhibit the deformity to your body, I guess, for lack of a better term. So he wants Raven to use it, and she rejects it because Magneto's constant telling her she should be who she is has finally made her accept who she is. So she leaves him. He decides to use it, but something starts happening to him. We don't see what. It fixes his foot at first, but then fur starts growing on. And he starts getting more monstrous, and then we don't see his full transformation. Then we see Raven, who I guess is
there was no American werewolf in London.
No, and this is where the infamous meme we get comes from, where Raven tries to seduce Magneto. The one with Michael Fassbender where he says, I want the whatever. No, not that one. Perfection. That one? So, because she says she's in bed in her human form, naked with the sheet over her to try to entice him to sleep with her. And he says, I prefer the real Raven. No, he says something about her being too young. And then she transforms into Rebecca Romaine Stamos, where we get a little nod to the future movies. And then he says, I prefer the real Raven. And then she turns into back to the younger form. And he says, no, the real Raven. And then she becomes the blue version. He says, perfection. So that's where that famous meme comes from. And then they sleep together. So this is where we get the whole thing where I tried to tell Davan before that I thought that Magneto and Mystique had a sexual relationship in the future, because it really seems like they do in the other movies. So they're on their way to go take off for the mission. Beast leaves them a message saying he'll meet them there, and leaves them their suits and stuff that they're going to wear, which has all the yellow and black X stuff on it. Then we meet Beast when they're preparing to leave, who has turned himself into the Beast we know with the blue fur. He enhanced his ability.
What is it?
Okay, we got it, David. It went the opposite way and enhances abilities even more so. And Miss Raven says that he's beautiful, but he's still accepting this ability. And even the other guys seem to accept him more. They're because Havoc called him a nerd all the time, and he's like, oh, you actually look pretty cool for a nerd. So then there's a big fight between so Kevin Bacon's character is going to use, or Shaw's going to use the nuclear arsenal from these subs to like enhance his powers and use it to enhance this whole nuclear explosion he's about to do. And during off the coast of Cuba, there's a big fight between the Russians, the Americans, and the mutants, all accumulating in a big thing where basically the two military sides are going to wipe each other out, but they're able to use their abilities to stop that from happening with the help of all of them working together. They incapacitate the other mutants. Magneto finally gets a showdown with Shaw and manages to use, when Shaw seems to have him one-upped, he managed to use his powers to pull the helmet off Shaw, which gives Charles enough time to freeze him. And Magneto takes that opportunity to use the coin that he was given as a kid to push it right through Shaw's brain at the other side, which actually was very satisfying. Like, it was cool to see. That scene was nice.
Yeah.
But Charles didn't want him to kill him because he didn't want him to give in to his rage and his anger and all that sort of stuff. So once they get ashore, Magneto, once they start shooting all the missiles out from the ships, Magneto's going to use his powers. That scene looks really funny. It looks like they're dancing. He's like, we're in Cuba. Let's do like some kind of Cuban dance. So Magneto is, now that the humans are firing the rockets at each other, Magneto now takes the helmet from Shaw and puts it on his own head so Charles can't stop him, and then uses it's going to send the missiles to make them both blow each other up, both sides. But during the fight, Charles tries to stop him. There's a whole altercation between all of this sort of stuff going on. Once Moira tries to stop him as well by shooting at him, he deflects the bullets. One goes into Charles' spine, distracting him enough to let the missiles go off forever.
And then they dance about it.
You leave your friends behind. So he's down, he's hurt. Magneto pulls the bullet out of his spine, and said he's sorry he came to this, basically, but he doesn't see things the same way Charles does. The mutants and humans can't work together. So he once again asks the group of mutants that are left behind who's going to come with him, and all of Shaw's guys join him. So we're in. It's almost like once you kill the king, you become the king.
Mm.
So
he's the leader of the Hellfire Club now.
Yep. So he gets a casino and everything. So Raven wants to go with him as well, and Charles tells her to go with him because he that's where she wants to be. He knows. So she does, and they teleport away with Azazel, who is never seen again, nor is the White Queen, nor is Riptide, nor is Havoc, nor is a bunch of these characters. Yeah, so that's basically it. We see Charles.
Banshee we see again in Generation X. White Queen too, actually.
That's true.
Way better versions of both those characters.
That's where they went.
Actually.
That's where they went.
Yeah.
Actually, man, that White Queen wasn't great. But anyway. So then we see him in a wheelchair, Professor X in a wheelchair, going to open a school for the kids. He's going to be Professor X. Moira tells him, he's going to have his X-Men. That's where he kind of, laughs that off. And kisses her and makes her forget about everything she's seen, basically, to protect the mutants and himself and his peeps. We see her giving a report to the CIA about everything, about how she can't remember anything. And they're like, do you remember nothing? And she says, I remember wisps of things. And she says this and that and a kiss. And then all the men groan and are like, oh, that's why you don't let women in the CIA. Which is like, I think I was on the treadmill at the gym or the elliptical, and I was like, I think I audibly was like, that's so stupid. And I remembered that scene from before, but it was just like, ugh. So anyway, then we see the White Queen get rescued by by Magneto, who's now wearing the Magneto costume. It actually looks more like the one that he wore in Grant Morrison's run. That's kind of more of a costume.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like a nobleman costume with the cape and everything. But he's now painted the helmet red he's put a little chevron on it for some reason. And they rescue her and she joins them, and that's basically the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Boom boom.
That's it.
I managed to get it under an hour. That's great.
Wow.
You could have just watched the movie, really, an hour and 45 minutes. But
Well,
But I mean, this way we get to stop and talk about stuff when it happens, I guess.
mhm. Well,
Well,
I mean,
that's yeah.
There's
Go
some
ahead.
weird effects on, like, because I just paused this on that last scene because I skimmed through it when I'm going over what happened, and like it's almost like you know those weird like early YTV videos where there's like the teeth with like eyes and they superimpose like real eyes over an image. Like the White Queen looks like that. Like her eyes look like real human eyes, kind of superimposed
yeah,
over.
it's really bizarre.
It is very bizarre. They should just made them white or something. I don't know. They don't look right.
Yeah, it's funny how they jettisoned like so much of the cast going forward, and it's like every movie was almost like, oh, we're just gonna forget about these people and just add some other ones and just toss these aside. And
Yeah. Well, even too, like when the kids are all like naming each other, and then when the adults show up and get mad at them for goofing off, and they're like, "Your name's Magneto," and he doesn't say anything, and then at the very end when he rescues the White Queen, she's like, "Eric, right?" And he's like she didn't even remember. He's like, "I prefer Magneto." It's like this dumb name they gave me.
yeah,
I like it in Squirrel Girl where she fights Magneto. And she's like, "Oh, I thought it was Magneto.
That's what I thought it was as a
I thought
kid.
you were Magneto."
I heard it pronounced on something.
did y'all ever see that old Fantastic Four cartoon from the 60s?
Oh
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
With
so
her-
that's like that was the first time I ever saw Magneto was in that show, and I love it. I still show this scene to my kids all the time because I cackle every time I see it. With like Reed Richards defeats Magneto with a wooden gun.
Isn't he like orange too? Isn't he wearing
Yeah,
like
yeah,
orange
he's like-
outfit?
He's like, your powers won't work on my gun. He's like, why? And like the cops come and arrest him. Like he just all of a sudden loses his powers just because Reed Richards
Yeah.
broke his
They
brain.
put metal handcuffs on him, and he goes.
Yeah.
You guys are correct. So on IMDb, that character's name is Janos Quested, and if you Google that name, that is the real name of Riptide in the Marvel.
Ah,
So you are right. He is indeed Riptide.
Wow.
we are professionals. What can
You
I
are.
say?
You certainly are.
All right, let's bring it up.
Magnificent bastards.
Let's do what we do.
Each of us will have to look into his own heart and decide.
Decide.
Oh, I mean,
All
this
right.
one, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not great either.
Okay. Oof. All right. We rate these out of 10, Joe.
Okay.
And there's a spot for you here as well.
I see.
Where would you put this out of 10?
Well, I enjoy it for the campiness, but it does seriously have some flaws, and it is definitely far inferior than like X2, and I even like Days of Future Past better. But I would still give this a 7 out of 10 just
All right.
because
That's
I
not bad.
love Fassbender.
He elevates it significantly. If it wasn't for him in this, I would mine would be significantly lower.
Yeah. So it's really him, and I honestly think he's got pretty good chemistry with James McAvoy too. So
Yeah.
the dynamic was pretty good.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
so.
I'm trying to go this on what I gave other people. So I gave X-Men 1 and 8, X-Men 2 and 9. This is definitely less good than X-Men 1. I'd have to give it a 6. I'll give it a 6.
Okay, 6.
And it's funny because that when I saw it the first time, probably would have given like an 8 or a 9.
Mm.
So funny how time can change things.
See, this one for me is like not great. I think I actually liked this on rewatch less than The Last Stand. I think I have to give this like a 4.
Wow.
But I haven't rated them high. I've been rating them high. I even gave X2 like a 6. I'm not super high on these movies. So 4 is not bad in those terms, I suppose. Geez, 6 for X2 seems a little harsh. But I don't know.
That's what I mean in context now. When you look back, you're like, oh, wait, maybe.
Yeah. But
I mean,
Yeah.
you're kind of grading on it's like you can only grade on what is available, right? It's not like there's except the beautiful, perfect X-Men film in your head, but we don't have that one yet. So.
oh my God, Screamy Baby.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the collectiveness of this overall then?
That would make it a
5.7.
5.7, which puts it.
Wolverine's at 2.3.
Wolverine didn't do so well.
Wow.
Wolverine Origins.
What would you give it Wolverine Origins, Joe?
Oh yeah, I'd probably give that a 1.
It
Once
was-
was
again,
like a 7
there's-
or 8 for me for like 40 minutes, and then it became like a 0 for the rest of the movie, which was
Yeah.
still like another hour. So
the best was Davan messaged me and he goes, this movie's actually not that bad. I'm waiting for it to go off a cliff. And then he's like, oh, it went off the cliff. And I'm like, what point did it go off the cliff for you? And he goes, the point where Wolverine literally jumped off the cliff when he's like naked and falling in a waterfall. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
They knew. What
All
they
right,
were doing.
I got a bunch of fun facts about this so we can.
All right,
talk
let's
about
hear
it.
some fun facts.
There's so many in these movies. So what we got here? So apparently, to prepare for the role of Charles Xavier, McAvoy shaved his head, and then learned after he did that they didn't want Xavier to be bald in this. They wanted a full head of hair. So for the first month of filming, he had to wear hair extensions,
Oh,
I remember hearing that. Actually.
and then and then finally shaved his head in X-Men Apocalypse. Stan Lee was going to make a cameo in the film, but because I think they filmed it in Australia or something, it was too far away for him at his advanced age at the time, which was funny because this was like, I don't know, 15 years before he died.
He wouldn't know any of these characters anyway. Like that was a funny thing we learned
it's
from
like
Rick Hoberg when he was on the show. He was just like, we found out Stan didn't know any of those characters. We were brought him in for part of the X-Men, and he's like, great, so it's about Iceman and Beast, and they're just like, no.
So here's some information about the Magneto prequel that never was. The film was originally to be a prequel about Magneto. Sheldon Turner wrote a treatment which he described as X-Men meets The Pianist. The story focused on Magneto's early years as a prisoner of war in a Nazi concentration camp until liberation by a squad of Allied forces led by Charles Xavier. They later meet after the war and become friends and then rivals. The studio decided to change the film's direction, but kept some aspects of it. Colin Firth and Kevin Bacon were both Matthew Vaughn's top choice to play Sebastian Shaw. Since he always wanted to see either of them play a villain, the studio felt there were already too many Brits in the cast, so they went with Bacon instead of Colin Firth. Though Colin Firth would have been a good Sebastian Shaw.
yeah,
Much closer to the source material than this guy, than Kevin Bacon.
for sure.
But Vaughn later cast Firth in the Secret Service Kingsman movie in the Golden Circle, so he got his stuff. Azazel's Russian in the film for some reason. That was different than the comics. Kevin Bacon's character was sort of based on Joseph Mengele, as you can kind of tell with them experimenting on humans and stuff. Fassbender studied Ian McKellen's performance in the other movies because he wanted to like pay homage to what he did, but do it his own way. But Vaughn wasn't very interested in that. He wanted him to do his own thing. So they kind of eschewed some of the stuff that he started picking up to ape McKellen. Also, Nicholas Hoult studied Kelsey Grammer's performance as Beast.
Really? You can't tell.
Not really. Let's see here. So
They should have just had Grammer come in and like age him down. Like do de-aging on him. That would have been pretty funny.
Bryan Singer was approached to direct it, but he turned it down because of his commitment to Jack the Giant Slayer, which actually stars Nicholas Hoult too, which is funny. So he's replaced with Matthew Vaughn. Matthew Vaughn didn't want the cast to do any of their accents in their performances because McAvoy had planned to copy Sir Patrick Stewart's, and Rose Byrne was going to be Scottish, but he told her not to. Because McAvoy's Scottish, so it said he was disappointed.
That's terrible. Like, what? Who's making these decisions? I don't know about this Matthew Vaughn fella.
Cassidy.
Well, his movies are interesting. I mean, they were interesting. Then they got kind of glitzy ever since he started doing all these Mark Miller adaptations. So the costumes are sort of an homage to Jack Kirby's old school ones, and also Grant Morrison's ones, the black and yellow that they do. Many of the pieces from the original Mystique's costume were used in this to do the effects on Jennifer Lawrence. So, this is interesting. So, according to visual effects supervisor, the biggest problem was them depicting Emma Frost's diamond body without looking like she was made of Jell-O or a polygon model of a human being. So they used live action plates while retaining her lips and eyes to go from diamond form. A couple guys that played Nazi soldiers in the movie also played Nazi soldiers in Glorious Bastards.
What a way to get typecast.
Yeah.
This was Alex Gonzalez's first film in English. The guy who played Riptide. He hasn't said any words, so I guess technically it doesn't matter. Yeah, here you go. Matthew Vaughn wanted the film to resemble the productions of the 60s. So he framed it and even filmed it in a way that was similar to how movies were filmed in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Although never named in the film, Davan, you'll enjoy this. Oliver Platt's character is meant to be FBI agent Fred Duncan from early X-Men comics, which is sort of a deep cut.
They could have called him Fred.
Yeah, I don't see why not, right? Or at least, something. Jason Fleming, who wore the makeup, who's kind of a famous actor. I don't know why he played Azazel in this because he barely said anything or did anything. That they could have had a guy like the other guy playing. You know him to see him. He's a famous English actor who always plays.
Yeah, I know Jason Fleming. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
He didn't want to. He played Calibos in the Wrath of the Titans movies and didn't want to do all the effects again, but made an exception to do this one, which is funny once again because it didn't really matter. Josh Ramsey, lead singer of the Canadian band Mariana's Trench, provides banshee screams in the film.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Rose Byrne was cast pretty late in the production. She came much later. It's most of the big stuff. Bryan Cranston apparently was also up for the role of Sebastian Shaw, but turned it down in the movie Drive, which I love that movie Drive. So I'm glad he did that, but still. Matthew Vaughn was originally hired to do X-Men The Last Stand, which is why he ended up doing this one. That's most of the important stuff. Yep. Apparently Taylor Lautner from the Twilight movies was considered to play Beast, but dropped out due to scheduling conflict.
Bullet dodged.
Yeah, we could have Werewolf Boy from the Twilight movies. Yeah, that's most of it. There's a bunch more, but we didn't go into all this. Amber Heard apparently was up for the role of Mystique before Jennifer Lawrence was. Beast fur was made from Arctic fox hair. I guess it must have dyed it blue. Josh Hutcherson and Aaron Taylor Johnson were both rumored to appear as Cyclops when this was coming out. And Edward Furlong apparently was considered for the role of Charles Xavier. That would have been interesting.
God.
Can you imagine what that would have looked like?
Had he even acted in 10, 15 years at that?
He did one of those terrible Crow straight to blue DVD movies, like Wicked Prayer or something, I think it was called.
That's mind blowing. I just want to see that version. I want to see that because he hadn't acted until I feel like. But,
the first X-Men movie to feature the F word. They shot it in 4 months. Man, there's a lot of notes here. I mean, that's most of the big ones. Apparently, the Fast and Furious. This is actually interesting. I didn't mention this last time, but I read it when I first when we were talking about this for the previous movies. Was that the Fast and the Furious and the X-Men franchises released the same installments of a franchise in the same year?
Wow.
So X-Men X2 was 2023, Fast Furious 2 was 2023, The Last Stand and Tokyo Drift for 2006. Wolverine Origins, Wolverine and Fast Furious was both 2009. First Class and Fast 5, 2011. The Wolverine and Fast Furious 6, 2013. Furious 7.
Wow.
Yeah, right. X-Men Days Future Past were the same. It would have been the same, but I got pushed a year ahead because of Paul Walker's death. So up until 7 is when they were on the same years.
Wow.
Oh,
I got a screamy baby here, so you guys.
Okay, you go ahead. We'll keep chatting.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what do you think overall about where the X-Men movies went in like when they made this shift?
Well, it was really surprising to me because, I did not enjoy X-Men Origins Wolverine and Last Stand. I did not enjoy. So I was like, they kind of were on a downward trajectory, and I went into this one with super low expectations, and I was just ready just to hate it, and was just so surprised how much I enjoyed it, just because I guess, I just let that inner critic just kind of go and just was fully prepared to hate it. And like I said, I enjoyed the campiness of it, and I kind of feel that, at least to me, that what I prefer X-Men is when it does, like, as a franchise, when it does have that campiness to it and it doesn't take itself overly seriously.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's that whole line that they put in the first one is like, what do you want to do? Yellow, or walk around in yellow and blue spandex? I'm like, yes.
I always scream yes at the screen every time I hear that
Yeah.
line. Yes.
I think it was. I don't know if it was my
We're
friend.
getting
Dave
them this year. We're
know
finally
this day-
getting the yellow spandex.
I don't know if it was Dave Cutler or somebody else that was saying how they really liked the campiness of when Magneto comes out in that costume at the end, because he just looks so like, compared to everything else, he's like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like, and then when he, like, it's really funny too, because he's standing there in the costume, and then he's like, "We want you to join us," and then it cuts to like the other mutants, and they're all in the doorway, kind of like leaning in, looking at her, and they're like the Breakfast Club or something. There's like a red demon. There's Mystique. All that sort of stuff. So it's just it's pretty goofy, but I mean, like the Deadpool movies sort of lean into that, and that's probably why they're so much fun.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's why they're so enjoyable. And and I like the next movie too. I like Days of Future Past because I like the darker take, and I like, all the different time periods. But like, I feel like this movie, whether you love it or hate it, like, it definitely kind of brought the franchise back a little bit in the film world. It was like, okay, this is still viable. This isn't a direct to DVD franchise, which is where I feared it was headed. But
which is weird, because this is kind of the movie where they decided, because really they don't carry many of these characters forward.
No.
So
hardly
like,
any of them.
They're trying to set up a new like volume of the franchise, but they're really just setting up Professor X, Magneto, and Mystique of all characters, and Beast, just kind of moving forward with those. Yeah, I guess in Beast
stays in all the movies too.
Yeah. So interesting choice to choose to kind of carry your franchise forward.
It's strange,
very strange. But I remember thinking that too, like the way you went into it. That's the way I went into it when it first came out, and I was like, oh, that was refreshing. It's a little campier, like you say, and like less black leather. They just replaced it for the standard blue and yellows, which aren't my favorite X-Men outfits either, because they don't need to all dress the same. They all have their unique personalities, and that's what's great about the X-Men.
I feel like the benefit of time has helped with this in a way too, because it's like we know the scope of all the X-Men movies, so now you can see all of it at once and know where this one stands as to what's to come and what came before. I agree with Joe, because like when this came out, I was like, my opinion of what these X-Men movies could be was so low. That's probably why I liked it so much, because it's like, oh, this actually is a competent movie that's not ridiculous. But upon viewing it again, you're like, well, this is more ridiculous than I remember. But I think I'm just so happy. It's just so happy that it wasn't like, fucking The Last Stand again or X-Men Origins.
Yeah.
Wolverine. Actually, the next movie in sequence would be The Wolverine.
Oh. That was also kind of campy too. And
I like that movie. I remember liking that movie a lot.
Yeah. It's like every Wolverine movie leveled up, in my opinion.
100%. We went from garbage to good to like excellent.
Yeah. And if you count Deadpool 3, it'll probably keep leveling up, because I think it'll be better than Logan.
Hopefully.
Although Dave mentioned some good stuff. Dave Cutler, when we had him on the show, where you're saying how like, the whole belief in X-Men 1 or 2 is that like Stryker's belief is that mutants are too powerful and they have to be controlled or killed. And then like what happens, maybe like Professor X gets like dementia and kills like all the X-Men, and like it's like, yeah, he's right. You should have killed him. They'd all still be alive if you hadn't killed them.
Right.
It's also funny how like X-Men 1, 2, and 3 we realized were like the same movie 3 times, or it was just somebody taking a mutant and amping up their powers to become a major threat. It's like it's the same movie 3 times.
Well, it's funny because after we watched X-Men 3, or actually just last week, I watched Birth, which is a Jonathan Glazer movie. The guy that did have you ever seen it, Joe?
No, but I know Jonathan Glazer's work.
Yeah. So Nicole Kidman plays a woman whose husband died of a heart attack like 10 years ago. And this boy shows up claiming to be the reincarnation of her husband, who's in love with her. He's a 10-year-old boy. And the boy is played by Caleb Bright, the kid that played Leech in X-Men 3. So I was like, look at this kid when he shows up. And he's really good in it. Like, he's fantastic in it, which makes me think they really didn't use him very well in X-Men 3, because he barely did anything. But
Maybe the
it's
guy who
solid.
played Whiplash is like a really Oscar-worthy, or Whiplash, Riptide. Maybe the guy who played Riptide has got like a really Oscar-worthy
Yeah,
role.
seriously.
Yeah, well, as a Spanish actor, maybe he does. You know.
His second English speaking role, he actually got like a line.
Well, the next, like I was reading about the guy that plays Namor now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he was like he's a huge star in Mexican television and film, and like that was like his first break into like the American market, or at least the global market through non-Mexican cinema. So it's like what a way to go from like Mexican movies being a big deal there, which he is, to like fucking Namor in a Marvel movie.
I like that portrayal in Namor.
So did I. I thought it was cool. I mean,
It looks
to make
really
it
cool too.
to make it different than Aquaman. Yeah, I think they did a really good job.
All right, well, I got a segment what we got to do before we get out of here for sure.
Well, we should talk about that Deadpool.
Hey, look who I found coming to
What we're
join the
gonna do.
party.
Glad y'all decided to join the party.
Let's party like it's Apostrophe 97, everybody, because it sounds like, if we can believe rumors, that X-Men 97 will be dropping on my birthday, March 20th. So happy birthday to me. Happy birthday
the
to us all.
ultimate. That's the ultimate birthday gift for you.
Yeah.
It is. It's going to be a good day. So,
And
turn 40 and watch X-Men at the same time.
you're gonna be 40, you old bastard.
I know.
When I was home visiting my brother on the weekend, they got a box of comics. Were the ones we used to have when we were kids, and we always used to read like 100 times. He's like, "Hey, look at these." And I was going through them. He's 5 years older than me, and he came. Remember when Marvel did that thing where they had the sealed bags, and they introduced a new villain in every comic in the 90s? There's like, it must have been late 90s. Like that's where like, and then the X-Men one that he had that was still sealed was the Executioner one where they introduced him. And I remember
He's
saying,
back in the
I
new
said, you should
season.
hold on to this because this might be worth a little more once he's reintroduced in that X-Men cartoon coming in. Because what an obscure 90s villain to throw in there.
And they made a toy for him.
Yeah, he must be a big part of it.
Yeah, really. It's interesting. I figure he must be working for like Strife or something. But we'll see.
Yeah, possibly so.
So should we talk about the Deadpool trailer?
I suppose we should a little bit. What do you think of the
What was
Deadpool trailer, Joe?
I loved it. I mean, I really was expecting, because I figured it'd just be like every other trailer, they would just give everything away. And I'm like, they're just going to show everything. So I was really pleasantly surprised that they held back from actually showing Wolverine, like up close or whatever. But yeah, really, really well done, and I'm like super excited. I loved I always love how he breaks the fourth wall. And
Yeah, he's like Marvel Jesus.
yeah.
The chosen one. I just finished, like I said, I was catching up on shows, and I finally finished Loki, or watched Loki season 2. So the nod to the TVA and how they seem to play a big part of this is pretty cool.
Hey now, cat fight.
Yeah,
I just had one going on here too.
that's all right. They're getting hungry. The natives are restless. So yeah, no, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously you saw Pyro again.
Yeah.
To nod to these.
Cool redesign for sure.
Yeah,
he does have the little goggles.
Really looks like he's aged at all, barely. I mean, like I know he looks older, but I was like, he almost looks almost exactly the same as he did in that movie.
It's been like 30 years.
He was on a Canadian TV show they did that was a remake of 12 Monkeys.
Oh yeah, that's right.
A few years ago, and I remember.
Yeah,
I watched like a season of it, and I kind of fell off. So it got pretty. Tom Noonan was in it too, oddly enough, from Red Dragon and a bunch of other stuff. But
wow.
The girl that plays Stevie on Schitt's Creek was in it too.
That's right. She was on that too. Yeah.
No, that was cool. I mean, there's all kinds of speculation about different glimpses we get of certain characters. There's like a metal character with a face that people are thinking is Doctor Doom. There's no way.
It's not Doctor Doom.
There's no way it's Doctor Doom. There's no way. They're like, we're just gonna have him show up. But it does seem like
I think they're spot on with the bald character with the big collar. I think.
Oh, being Cassandra Nova.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool because I was always saying I'd like to see her be introduced. I would prefer to see her in an X-Men cartoon or show proper, but who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what's going to happen with this. Maybe it'll end with him getting a happy ending, and that'll be his swan song as well. Or maybe he'll just get dumped in the Marvel Universe and we'll get Deadpool as part of the future stuff.
Oh, he's getting dumped into the Marvel Universe.
You think he's going to be like in the Avengers and books going forward, movies going forward?
Oh, yeah, he'll be a big part of Secret Wars and everything, for sure.
Yeah, I hope so. I kind of think it'd be, and especially like it's a nice nod that if continuity gets flipped or the old universe gets wiped, and he's one of the few things from that timeline that gets dumped in ours, that like he's like the one joining part to the old thing, and then the new.
He was the best part of it. He was the best part of the
But even
universe.
like seeing where it looks like we're going to get Madripoor Wolverine.
Yeah.
Oh, patches. We got Patch there for sure.
Which is pretty cool.
Who's going to be playing him?
Oh, what do you think?
Hugh Jackman said. Guesses.
Hugh Jackman said he's playing several versions of Wolverine in this. So it'll probably be him.
You don't think there's going to be any other actors playing different versions of Wolverine?
I would love to. It'd be cool if there was, or maybe they're going to tease who the next one would be. That would be cool too. But I mean, I don't know. I don't really hold that until I see casting, because I thought John Krasinski was going to be Mr. Fantastic forever, and now apparently it's Pedro Pascal, which is still great to me.
That's an interesting casting choice.
I think he'll be great. I love him. So
it's interesting.
The full rumored casting is it's Pedro Pascal. Like that. It seems like this is what's confirmed, but like Marvel hasn't said 100%. But Pedro Pascal is Mr. Fantastic. Vanessa Kirby is Invisible Woman.
I don't know her from anything.
She was in that Napoleon movie that came out with Joaquin Phoenix. Okay. She's good in it. Very good in it. The guy that played Micro in The Punisher was up for the thing.
Okay.
I can't remember his full name. He was in Andor. I just watched. I'm catching up on that too. And
oh my God.
Jesus, you okay?
Yeah, it's just cats being cats.
And
knocked my Pavarotti record on the ground. Thanks, Parker.
Not Pavarotti. Are the other two tenors okay?
Well, I'm not as big Jose Carreras fan myself, but Placido Domingo's all right.
They were saying that the kid from Stranger Things that played Eddie is going to be the Human Torch. Which is fine. I'm sure he'll be fine. He seems like a cool actor.
Who's Doom?
Good question. They haven't said that one yet.
Rumor keeps going back to Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be very cool. Although we already saw him, but I mean, I'm okay with.
Oh, yeah, he was Caecilius. That's right.
Although, you know what? I heard. Doom could be. There's so many cool actors that Doom could be.
I also heard it could be
Paul Giamatti. I want Paul Giamatti.
No, not Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, he would be great. He should be. He should be him or Patton Oswalt should be the Mole Man. 100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to see the way these movies work. He wouldn't be like a gross, sticky underground mole person. He would be like a scientist, that's working in the company that runs afoul of them and then becomes some kind of mole man by the end. So that would make more sense in that way. But I really want to see, I really hope that this opens up all the cosmic stuff we haven't got yet through Guardians. I want to see Terrax. I want to see, all
Silver Surfer,
Borg, the Silver Surfer, Galactus. I want to see all, I guess we do have Adam Warlock, but and we do have Pip the Troll now, kind of as well, which is Patton Oswalt, which is cool. But in Star Fox and all those characters, we have him too briefly, but I want to see more of that. I want to see the big.
Me too.
They
could make the Marvel Universe can definitely seem bigger, and they can, but there's just lots of stories to tell.
I really want to see in a Marvel movie, the Jack of Hearts. That would make me happy.
That is obscure.
He's great.
Yeah.
Jack of Hearts.
He would have been a character to show up in a Guardians movie, but they're going to keep making Guardians movies.
Blastar, I want to see those costumes.
The living bomb burst.
I always thought Terrax was the coolest looking character. I don't know why, but I want to see Terrax. Let's see that.
Terrax the Tamer.
It's him. Or even any of the other, champions, or Champion, or any of those guys we haven't seen yet.
Scally wants to see Fatal Attractions. Yeah, that'd be pretty badass on either the cartoon or.
That Magneto appears to be a good guy for the extent of this season.
That won't last. Definitely won't last. Well, should we get out of here then, fellas? Got anything you want to hype? Your Joe, other than your comic that you cannot yet name?
Well, I mean, I just starting convention season. I got my first show in April at C2E2 in Chicago. So I'm an artist alley there. So if anybody's in the area, please come see me.
Oh, sweet.
Oh yeah, we got listeners in Chicago.
Yeah.
Also,
very
Joe,
nice.
ever since we had our interview on my other show, I feel like I've run into everywhere I turn, like in used bins or at stores, I've been seeing Morning Glory's comics. It's almost like every time I turn, there's like a new copy of something. I'm like, oh, shit. I feel like a curse has been placed on me. I'll just keep running into the rest of my life.
Well,
No, it's not a curse. It's not a curse. It's a great book, but it's just funny. Now I feel like I just have to keep buying it and giving it to other people. Like, read this. It's great.
fine. You could do that.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well, join us next week where we'll be reviewing the Wolverine.
Next week
With-
is the
with-
Wolverine.
With Jody. Yep. With
So
Jody
you-
Simpson from our sister shows over there on the Trek Network.
Actually, isn't next week a week off? Didn't we decide to do that for the play?
Oh, right. Right. Oh, that's what I didn't adjust in my schedule.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, forget that. The Wolverine's not going to be for a while. We're going to take a week off. Then we'll be back with Radio Theater. Bob Skier's X-Men movie script that I've helped make some changes to myself, and I think it's just a perfect piece of X-Men action.
Of course. The secret ingredient to polish it into the perfect X-Men script was you, Davan. You made it perfect.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't going to say that myself, but thank you for the recognition.
So
there,
who are you playing on this theater, Davan?
Wolverine.
Of course. And who am I playing, Davan?
Magneto.
Uh-huh. Okay.
He loves your Magneto.
Does he good? It was fun actually.
Yeah.
I like Machiavellian
Yeah.
bad guys. I don't get to play them very often in theaters.
I cast you perfectly, I think.
I think so.
And after that, we'll have George Booza on the show. We'll be talking to the Beast himself, so that'll be fun.
Man, I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm not going to ask him
Maniac
anything about
Mansion.
Beast. I'm just going to ask him about obscure Canadian horror movies.
Maniac Mansion.
Christmas Horror Story, I think was the one that is the one that I seen recently.
That's a good. I've seen that actually. That's good.
The one where he plays Santa Claus, like, and he's like,
Yeah.
It actually is way better than it has any right to be. Like,
Yeah.
I was quite surprised how good it was.
That's most Canadian content, really.
Well, like William Shatner's like a DJ, radio DJ. He just sits in a booth the whole time.
He like narrates
easiest way for
the
him.
anthology kind of thing, right?
Kind of, yeah. It has some decent moments.
Yeah. Well, Shatner
Cool.
makes everything better.
Sure.
All right. Well, we'll get out of here then. You can support the show, patreon.com/X-Men Review Show. Contact us at xmenreviewshow@gmail.com. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and you can, tell us if you agree, disagree with our ratings on this show. Am I too harsh on these X-Men movies? Probably. But
You definitely are, but you're not wrong. You're just so passionate about it that it like amps it up to like 11.
Fair enough. Find our audio-only version wherever you get your podcasts. Did I say that already? Please like, review, and subscribe. And check out our entire network at ufpodcast.com, of which we are a proud member of.
That's
and,
right.
Yep. What's going on, André, over on the...
Well, my episode with Mike.
The Graphics Histories Podcast. That's my André voice.
That's not bad.
The Graphics
No, it's-
Histories Podcast.
Is that what I sound like? Really? Wow. Okay. I don't hate my own voice. It's funny how much I have to listen to because I do a podcast. But yeah. So episode with Mike Carlin just dropped Monday. He was the DC editor for Superman for many, many years.
Great stories that guy had.
Famously, during the Death of Superman storylines, you get a lot of the ins to that and how that all came about. Some really fun stuff. After that, it's J.K. Woodward, who, Joe, I think you may know somewhat of.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because he did some work on covers for books he worked on.
Yeah.
Then Bradley Rader after that, who had been long career in animation and comics work as well. And then, there's so many, Davan, so many people on the show coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have, after him, we have Eric Larson, creator of The Savage Dragon, which is very cool. It's a very great conversation. After him, Fabrice Sapolsky, co-creator of Spider-Man Noir. And after him, Fred Van Lente, former Marvel writer and indie comics writer currently. We have a great discussion with Fred about, because since I'm like 5 episodes in the can here before that one drops, we have a great discussion about one of the most disturbing pages in a comic book I've ever seen was in Marvel Comics, the Marvel Zombies, the ones he did. I think it was 3 or 4. It might have been 4. There's like a scene where Sandman is attacked by the zombie Spider-Man and then encounters the normal Spider-Man of this particular Sandman's universe, thinking it's the same character. So he just goes all out trying to kill him and basically like fills Spider-Man's body with sand and then explodes him from the inside out. And there's like a scene and then Spider-Man's like all like huge and he's just like Gwen, and then he explodes and then he's like his tongue's out and his organs and everything. And I don't know why, but it's just like the most like, it's almost like watching a Michael Haneke movie or Haneke movie. It's like super devoid of any hope. It was like such a depressing, weird little scene. But we have a great chat about that and a lot of his work on Marvel Zombies and working for Marvel.
Well, everybody look forward to those interviews as I do. And there's many other things. There's Hold Up a Movie podcast. We got Super Mater Brothers. We talk about reality shows and we do some Marvel reviews over there. And of course, we have our many Star Trek channels, Star shows. We did talk astrophysics. Yeah, we did that recently. And we talked to J.G. Hertzler recently as well. And there's lots going on there. And there's trivia debates, Eamon on Track, and the Hellbound podcast. So that's everything. Should we get out of here? We're running long, and I got babies upstairs. I can hear it. All right. All right.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Joe.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you.
All right. Catch you next time, everybody.
Yeah, next time.
All right. Thanks.